that it?
We are live.
Hi!
Hello!
Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome. I hope you're doing well. I'm excited about this. It's good to see quite a few of you have. Are you waving at me?
You're live.
Oh, I am now, sorry. So sorry, this isn't quite the smooth start that I'd hoped for, but I want to welcome everyone, including our guests. We've had a few sign-ups, so we can have a few shout-outs to our hockey players, netball, swimming, hiking, football, cricket, also bouldering, sailing and canoeing, so a really nice mix out there. Feel free to chuck anything into the chat at some point, comments or questions, so that we can hear from you as well. Fantastic to see that we've got from under 12 to over 50. Amazing to have such a diverse bunch of girls and possibly male fans out there. And we can represent Hong Kong, South Africa and Philippines.
And Scotland.
Oh, who's from?
Rachel.
Oh yeah. Oh, also of Scottish clan as well. So a quick explanation of why this is even happening in the first place, I suppose. I've been playing rugby for quite some time now, and as I move into coaching, as I get a little bit older and hopefully a little bit wiser, I guess I'm determined to be part of the community that is pushing for change and greater equity, both on the field and off the field. Briefly, the day is going to look like less of me talking at you and more of a conversation between the four of us here. We're looking to finish around 8, maybe around 8:10, and as I said before, we really welcome you into being part of the conversation. So perhaps quick introductions. Sarah.
You're looking at me.
Well, I know as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Monaghan. I work with Kat quite regularly as she's a key member of Hong Kong Scottish Rugby Club. That's the rugby club that I manage. I'm general manager there, which is quite an interesting role, very varied, get very involved with lots of aspects of the club and helping to essentially grow our rugby community, our netball community, our football community, and just keep to push the club going forward. So before that as well, I used to play rugby and just love taking part in sport. So it's great to be here today.
Yay!
Kayla.
My name is Kayla, and my sport is trail running, and I'm the founder of Hong Kong Trail Running Women, which was founded in 2016. So this year we were really happy to merge together with Asia Trail Girls to become the Hong Kong chapter. So our goal was to invite everyone to join and try trail running and to promote the sport amongst women. Right now we still have a very heavy male to female ratio in the sport, especially in Hong Kong. And I'm also the co-founder of Exchange Empower, which is a program where we try to empower women from disadvantaged backgrounds in Nepal through sports and also through trail running.
Busy lady.
My name is Sissy. I work for WISE, which is Women in Sports Empowered Hong Kong. And we are a charity, just recently became a charity, that runs events and initiatives to champion women and girls in sports in Hong Kong. And I also have a podcast about women in sport.
How popular is that podcast?
It's doing okay, it's doing pretty well. And that's also about women in sport. It's called In the Changing Room. So
I was trying to push you to say it's number 3 in Hong Kong.
well, I don't think it is right now. It was
Hey,
for an
well.
hour. Once upon a time. Maybe tomorrow we have one. But
It's up to you.
I've dealt with someone. I've met some really, really awesome people through doing it. So
Nice. So cracking bunch.
Mhm.
If I may say so. Oh, do I introduce myself?
Yeah.
this is Kat.
Tell us about you, Kat.
Oh, okay. Hi. I'm Katrina. So I'm Katrina. I've played rugby for a good 12, 13. This is where we first met.
So I was you're looking at me to
Yeah.
remind you of how long. But yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So about I don't know, 13ish years. So But I've recently picked up trail running, I'd say in the last year, and I think it's been a really interesting way to reflect on how much pressure I put myself under for a sport that I've played for a long time and that I assume that I should be good at. And my approach to trail running that has been very deliberately, gently, and about enjoying it, and if I want to stop, it's the end. So I think learning loads about myself and what I can do as actually I get older.
Yeah.
There's been lots of changes there. Should we go to Shankland? No. We shall not go to Rachel Shankland just yet.
Yeah, she seems to have
Okay,
dropped off for a minute, so I'll let you know.
that's all right. We will at some
If
point
she comes back in.
hopefully be joined by a friend of ours, Rachel Shankland, who is currently in the squad for Scotland, and next week they will be preparing for the Six Nations campaign. So it'll be really good to hear from her as she's about to re-embark back on the pitch because they've been off.
It's a long now,
a
yeah.
long time.
Good couple of months.
So let's just crack on. Maybe we can just have a bit of a whirlwind tour about some of your getting into sport. Who got you into it? What did they get you into? When did it happen?
Let's just should we mix it up maybe? I
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so I'll start because it's relatively short. So I actually only started doing sports when I was 30. Before that, I was really bad at, really clumsy, and I was really not very good at sports growing up. But I returned to Hong Kong when I was around 30, which is about 10 years ago. And I decided, I really liked exploring, so I thought, I would explore a bit, maybe on a trail. So I just went hiking, and then, one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, I was doing trail walker. And I was completely unprepared, but basically I finished, and I got really addicted. And then since then, I really feel like sports has really changed my life. I felt much more connected with nature because of the kind of sport I do, and also it just made me feel like I could do anything. And people ask me, oh, how come you run so many charities and etc. And you have a busy job, but I really feel like all of that is good training because of the sports that I've been doing.
I find it really interesting that you picked sport up at a later stage, and it seems like you're really loving it and doing a lot for it. But I'm quite interested in what you said around originally when you were younger, you didn't think you were good at sports. I suppose I'm just interested to know kind of what led to that. Was it just that you hadn't found a sport that you love, or bad experiences that kind of led to you feeling that sport wasn't for you?
Well, I think it was because I actually had asthma growing up. So then I would always get excused from like PE class. And then I was just, I was quite clumsy as well. Like if it's a ball sport, I can't catch the ball. And then I didn't learn to ride a bicycle until I was 25. So I really come from a background of no sports.
Yeah, okay.
I would say I'm fairly similar. I was not a sporty child or teenager at all. But when I remember being in primary school, and my dad and my brother would always play in the garden, and I would go out of my way to make sure I was there too, playing. But I did a lot of dance and drama and musical theatre things. But then I remember in year 6 we had an opportunity came up for some girls in our class to go and play the year 7s at the local secondary school in football. And I was so excited, so excited. We were running down and we won. I think something silly like 10-0. We only played 5-a-side and I scored a bunch of goals and I was over the moon for so long. I was like, I want to be a footballer, this is it. This is my career. I remember going to secondary school being so excited, thinking I'm going to join the girls' team. Turns out they didn't have a girls' team. They just were a PE class of girls that needed to play. So I was pretty sad. And then we had a school carnival sports day thing once, and our form group was entering a football team. And the form tutor, all the boys said that, yeah, I want to play. I'm like, and the form tutor, I remember he looked and he was like, we have to have a girl. We have to have one girl's got to play. And all the boys were like, no, we can't have a girl play. It's like, we can only enter a team if we have a girl. And it was a bit like Katniss in the Hunger Games. I was kind of like, I'll do it. I'll do it. It's me. And all the boys were like, please not her. Please not her. I was like the size of this table for a long time. I was very, very small. And anyway, the day of it came, I practiced in the garden for so long. I was like, this is my big moment. Like, I'm so excited. And they put me in goal. And I was really upset and I was just terrible. I didn't save anything and they were all the boys were so mad at me. And then I just was like, I will never speak about football again. I hate it. I hate football. I just forgot about sport for a long time and then went to university and my dad was like, join a team and I found the football team and I was like, let's give this another go. Don't put me in goal.
Just as they suggest goal. Be like, I think I've got enough
I
assignment.
know, I know. Even at training, it sounds like you just pop in goal. I'm like, oh, I cannot. But yeah, so I can relate to the like not thinking I just definitely didn't think sport was for me at all. Thought there were no teams and no opportunities. So it wasn't until university I kind of got back into it.
Your story's quite different.
Yeah, I suppose mine's a little bit different though. I've always sort of played sport, not particularly well, just tried everything at school. And then I just kind of found some of the sports was playing a little bit boring, just kind of a bit of a tomboy and like to get stuck in. And this older guy, let's just say, wanted to start up this new women's rugby team near me back home in England. And I was like, what? Never heard of this before. I didn't really know much about it. And they just my friends pulled me along to give it a go. And at first I was like, this feels a bit strange. And I think there were 3 of us that would turn up at training. And then we'd have 4 the next week. And it was quite tough to get to the point where we had a team. And I kept trying to quit as well. For some reason I was just like, I'm not sure I don't know. I was a bit unsure about it. But at the same time I found it really fun. So I just stuck at it. And luckily it's kind of taken me quite far in terms of I'm now very fortunate to be working in rugby, and I have done for the last few years. I've been able to travel, but it's not been an easy path. I mean, there's been some hard times, and lastly, I'm just sort of enjoying watching it again. So I've kind of almost gone full circle.
Nice.
But really, I owe it to this guy setting up the team, because if it wasn't for him, I probably would never have found rugby. It just kind of was an opportunity that just felt good to miss.
You've also been quite humble. You were quite good. You went to a World Cup when you were 16.
Yeah, I was
Whoops.
right place, right time. Yeah.
Not very good at
A long,
sport.
it feels like another lifetime ago, that's why.
Well, I just think that's interesting in the terms of, as you say, you come a circle because you've worked. I think my story's opposite, almost in a way to you, because, well, I did a lot of sport when I was a kid. My parents had us doing everything. And I always say if I'd stuck to one thing, I'd be an absolute genius at something at this point. But I didn't, so I'm not. Yeah, so I kind of grew up doing quite a lot of sport. But actually, it's as I'm older that I think I'm realising what my body's capable of. I spent a lot of time almost capping myself as a kid. As you said, like, this isn't for me, I'm not very good. Participation's fine. Right, but I never really had a competitive streak because I just didn't think I didn't think I had the ability to have this.
I think that's a lot of girls across the board though.
I kind of
I
say,
think it's a teenage girl thing.
When did that change for you? And was there something that kind of helped
I think
put that switch?
I think rugby helped really bizarrely, and I got into rugby before. I don't know if I've told you this story. I went to watch my brother play once, and I told him I didn't think he was very good.
That sounds like you can. Honest feedback.
He said, well, you couldn't do any better, and I said, oh, but I can. And that is when I joined the firm.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
So I think I'm a bit spicy sometimes. Yeah, I'm not. But it was never I'm going to be the best. It was just I don't know what it was. And then it was the first sport that really made sense because I did a lot of sport, but I wasn't very good at it. And I think it's given me, and I think that's also a bit me. I've got a lot of random various skills. I'm not very focused. But then I found rugby, and somehow that was a sport that made sense. But I think a real key change for me was going to university. But I had several different experiences in different teams. And one of them was at university I got told I was I was too aggressive or too, you weren't there at the time.
Too aggressive for what?
Yeah.
I think if it was the rugby team I was part of, I think they probably told you too bossy.
It could have been anything. Bearing in mind, so I mean I say I'm not convinced, but they were turning up to training in like denim jeans and I was like, come on now. Come on. Like, let's work hard and then go.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But there were a few times where like, calm down, Kat.
I was like, move. Maybe I'm more competitive than I thought I was. But what was different, because the rugby only had one team, whereas netball had three. So it meant that you sort of ended up, relative to how much dedication you were willing to put, you ended up with like-minded people. And I think that was a change. And looking back at it, I think that was really important for me. Because in the end, I stopped rugby for a while, but I kept on with, it was netball that had the various sports, because it meant I was with people. I don't know how you...
Oh yeah, I think that's probably why I joined at university, because I just remember thinking, when I spoke to these, I had sort of like this out-of-body experience at the sports fair at university, but I thought I'll do netball, I'll do this, I'll do this. And then it was like, these footballers just like lit up, and they were like, come home, and I was like, okay. But I remember going over like, I can't play.
I think it's one time in goal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not talking about it, but and they were like, "Oh, we have a first team, we have a second team, we have a third team." Like, and the third team are very fun. The first team are quite competitive. We'll find somewhere for you. And I think all through my teenage years, I'd always just thought, if you're going to play, you've got to be very good. And I think that is a teenage girl thing. I think we're very critical of ourselves. And I think if you don't think that you're really good and you're going to get very far, this was my experience anyway, then I think you think, well, why would I do it? Why would I play football if I'm not going to be good at it? Do you know? When I was at uni, then I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can just play and mess about. And now I find that a lot of the stuff I do, like through my football club here even, or through WISE, is I think it's really, really important to provide opportunities for people to play a sport where they can just be silly and not that good. Do you know what I think? In Hong Kong, we have a very, very competitive culture and a very like be the best culture, and I think there needs to be more opportunities for people to just play their sport for fun.
Wow, this
Yeah,
sounds a
you
bit
know,
like
this resonates with me what you said, because because I organize a lot of group runs, mainly just get more people to try. And the number of people that contact me and say, I'm not ready to come, but I'm training and preparing myself so that I can come in 6 months. And I am like, training for what? Yeah, and you can come and join us, and that's the training. And I think they're often worried that they need to run non-stop, they can't walk, and actually it's completely not like that. I mean, some people are just walking, and even very, very elite people are walking on the uphills, and really it's just a social sport. But people feel this pressure from their teenage years all the way up to 50 plus. They're telling me the same thing.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the time people wouldn't join a sport, they wouldn't play sport, because actually it's really scary. I think it's really easy as a teenager, even a bit at uni, to turn up to something and give it a go. But I think when it gets to sort of late 20s, 30s, if you haven't been playing, then if someone says, "Oh, do you want to give football a go?" You'd be like, "Absolutely not." Not a chance. Like, I think it's really scary, and I think it's, whether it's girls, teenagers, or women, I think it's really important to create more entry-level opportunities to play sport.
I think what's also important with that is just how we market it. So I know like how you've done tonight, it's about making sure that everybody feels welcome, that we're talking about like absolutely everyone from every diverse background. And I think that's something we think about as a club, is how do we get that message across? Because someone could have had a really bad experience, say at school, or your first football session, for example. But it sounds like you're quite a tough character and you want to overcome that, but that can permanently put you off playing sport. So I sometimes think like, we don't know what experiences our audience, our target audience have had, whether it's trail running or whatever. So what can we try and do to make that as easy as possible for them to feel comfortable to come along and just give it another go?
Absolutely.
And I think the more that we can grow sport, and the more that we've got different tiers, so we've maybe got 2 rugby teams or 3 rugby teams or football teams, that's just really helpful, because there's a space that you can go into and just do your thing and have fun.
Agreed.
And how do you feel in the sense, because I suppose us three are from team sports, that what's the trail scene like in terms of community?
Well, actually, the community is super strong. I mean, I guess like people make friends easily, and you can, when you go to a race or group one, you always pick up 1 or 2 new friends. And group runs are really popular, but I find the sport is very popular for people who are quite stressed and have quite a busy life, because then they can go and get away in nature and just sort of clean out their mind. So I do find some people like to go on runs by themselves, but sometimes people when they're starting out, they like to have a buddy to sort of like help them feel like they know the direction and just to give them a sense of, you know, when is it sensible to walk, which is quite often actually.
Straight away in my book.
Okay, nice. So I guess trying to pick a good question. Is there anyone, I suppose, around, because we've discussed some of the kind of barriers to getting into, or perceived barriers of getting into things. Can you think of anyone that's kind of drawing your attention at the moment, that's ways that people are doing things to talk back to that or push back on that, or you do? What am I doing? I mean, I've just got 2 charities that I.
Oh, I think for sport, I mean, trying to reach a wider audience, I think what we've been trying to do with the Exchange and Empower program, which we run in Nepal, which I'm lucky to run with the famous trail runner Mira, is that we try to have a lot of exchange with them between us and the more sort of privileged background, because I think when we work with them and we realize, you know, these people may not even have shoes, and we had an athlete that we were supporting who told me she goes to sleep very early because she's hungry, so she just goes to sleep to avoid being hungry. And then when we work with these ladies, you know, we realize that our barriers are much more in our mind, and we learn a lot from that, because, you know, we're worried about things like, are we good enough? Are we fast enough? Are we strong enough? You know, are we just going to fall over? You know, but really it's quite silly. I mean, it's not silly, it's very real, but at the same time, it helps to speak with people with different difficulties. Yeah. Some impressive work. Thanks. How about you guys?
I touched on it a bit there. My football club, so we're in Division 1 of, there's 2 women's football leagues in Hong Kong. Division 2 and Division 1, funnily enough. And my team were in Division 1, which kind of, with being in Division 1 comes with kind of, you know, a commitment, right? And a sense of competition. And although we're absolutely not the best, like, we do have to take training quite seriously, right? But then when we were doing sort of trials and recruitment stuff, we realized that we would get, because we're a sort of expat team, we would get a lot of people come to us to train, and we're not very expensive to be a part of. And we just kind of thought, like, who are we to turn these women away and say, we don't have a spot for you? Do you know, like, it felt really wrong. It was sort of against what we all stood for, to say, sorry, no. So we started this social team. We call it Hong Kong United. We didn't really have a name, so we call it Hong Kong United. Yeah, and essentially now when the women's team train, we take a pitch at Happy Valley. We only need half, and we just run a social team. We just say absolutely anyone could come down. Don't need anything, just come in your trainers, do a bunch of games, kick the ball about, learn a little skill, and then just share the pitch. And then, you know, occasionally someone will come and we're like, where is he? But I think that's what we're trying to do, just to sort of make it more, you know, there should be a spot for everyone to play, and it shouldn't be, you can only play football if you're quite good at football, do you know? That's what we're doing. But I see quite a bit of that around.
Visuals.
Oh,
Nice to get on here. There's
This could be a good moment, yeah.
Rachel? Is she definitely there?
she's
There's going to be a little,
Oh, okay, there's
little
a-
delay, I guess.
Maybe.
Small delay.
We should go to her off that phone.
The all important question is she in Scotland kit?
No.
Oh, Rachel.
Wanted to see her head and toes.
So can we hear her?
I mean, I think she's still coming just now.
It does appear to be frozen.
So,
Well, but anyways, to your point just now, I mean, I think what you said, sometimes then someone's playing in the social club and then you suddenly find that they are
They're
very
quite good,
talented.
yeah.
So we get that a lot too. I have tons of people who tell me, oh, I'm so terrified, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, they're like on every podium.
Mhm.
So many famous trail runners have sort of come through like a couple of years before and said, oh, you know, I'm so bad at running. And later they're so good.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I'm a very sort of average back of the pack runner. So but it's amazing how many of these elite runners I've seen, and how sometimes they suddenly find their talent. Often, quite they're from all ages. Some are very strong runners in their 20s, but also some very very strong runners in their 40s plus. Yeah.
I mean that happens quite a lot in rugby as well. I think what's key in our environment is that there's someone there to help support that and give that person confidence and be able to sit through that. So I think the coach plays a really important role. And certainly if you're talking about girls' sport, is making sure that coach is good personality, is really engaging, can make the sessions really fun, and can recognise who's there for friendship, for all of that, for fitness, like almost recognise different motivations for being there, but also spot that person within that group that has real potential to push on to the next level, and give them all the opportunities in the world to help them to achieve that. I think we're quite lucky in Hong Kong, from my experience being here a couple of years. We've actually got some really great people, certainly in the rugby environment where I kind of work mostly, working in women and girls rugby. So the case as well would be, how can we try and get former rugby players back in, and certainly more female coaches back in as well. Like at our club, we're quite lucky that Kat started coaching this year, which is great, because you've got loads of experience to bring, and you're still like a current rugby player too. So it just means that you can relate to the girls that you're coaching really well. So I think the more we can do that, and the more we can give retiring players an opportunity to step into the coach's shoes as well, it just kind of is
Knock on.
yeah.
I have to admit, I find coaching terrifying. I think
Why?
I think it's because I've had a few opinions about a few of the coaches I've had in my lifetime, and I think the way girls' sport has been for me is that there was a lot around gratitude, or be grateful because you're the girls' team that someone's just there, and sort of got this maybe 12 years worth of frustration with that, and thinking actually it's only now I think actually we deserve more. We're beyond. I can be grateful, but I can also have expectations, right? And now I'm the person that has to manage those, or like be able to respond and be accountable to those expectations. Because before it was just like, oh, he's a bit rubbish, like, and now it's like, oh, Katrina, you're a bit rubbish. That job didn't go great. You didn't explain that well. So I suppose there's a great sense of responsibility around trying to think about, okay, these are the issues I've considered in the past. How do I not just become part of that, but really push for great standards, because girls deserve them. You deserve to feel, when you said earlier about being clumsy, that's a skill, right?
Absolutely.
But you have to have the confidence
Yeah.
and the
I
people
realise
around
that
you.
now.
Yeah, really clumsy and excellent at sport. In the number of sports is actually a good strength to have.
Yeah.
So when I first started hiking, because I was just exploring, right, almost every week I would be all covered with mud, like from head to toe, because I would just fall over. And I also started in spring, wasn't the best idea. But because I would just fall over, I would get so used to falling over just walking, because Hong Kong is so paved, we're not used to unpaved trails. So, but then because I just kept going. I mean, I very rarely fall over now. I just had a bike crash, but not on the trail. I don't fall over that much anymore. And so it absolutely is a skill. But you might not get that sort of confidence especially when you're a kid, and maybe kids can be mean. If you're clumsy, then you just get a bit scared, right? And definitely is something that. But I find when I observe the kids now, I feel they're more kind to each other.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a generational thing.
Yeah, I suppose I was going to throw out there, similar to this, is just how important our peers or our teammates or our training mates to our sense of enjoyment, and why we're still playing the sports that we're playing or involved. I don't know about you and your first experiences and how you ended up playing rugby now. Was how much of that was because you made some friends, or it made you feel like you were fine to make mistakes, or celebrated successes? I suppose how important is the role of your peer or your teammate in keeping more girls involved in sport?
Well, I think team sports are sold as being like brilliant because PE is brilliant, but the other side of that is that they can also, as you said, be mean. And so it's a lot around what kind of cultures are we trying to generate in our, and I also think comes back to what you said about fear. Sometimes people are mean because they're afraid. They're afraid of showing like a bit of vulnerability or getting something wrong, and then how people react to things. So again, thinking about like coaching or even being a teammate, how do I open the space for people to mess up? Because it's learning, because I'm interested in participation, because it's really not. I feel passionately about girls getting involved, and there will be a group that go on to be elite and brilliant and stuff, and that's great, and they should be pushed, but not to the detriment of other team members. And when you're in a team, that's hard to balance.
I think ultimately no one's going to do something that they don't have fun doing, right? Whether you're a child or a teenager or an adult, unless you actually have to do it. When we're talking about something recreational like sport, it's a choice. If it's not fun, you come away from it feeling rubbish, and you don't really get on with your teammates, or they don't make you feel that welcome. Why on earth would you go back? Do you know, like it's.
PE lessons.
Well, I was just about to
Well, so
say,
anything recreational, right?
Yeah,
So
well,
it's-
yeah.
having said that, talking about good role models, people that keep us in and peers, I don't know how well your PE teachers scored. They were always amongst our favourites.
The PE teachers?
Yeah.
No, I had scary PE teachers,
Oh, really?
really scary PE teachers.
Oh, yeah. Tell us more.
No, I remember it was like things
Okay.
like having
I
you have to like get changed within 30 seconds.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh,
Yeah.
things like that. And then I remember like because I was very clumsy, right? I remember hitting my head on something because I was like in such a rush, and then being really dizzy, and then.
Oh, I remember you saying, yeah.
But anyways, it's okay.
They're not great
Yeah.
PE teachers.
Mine was
Yeah.
scary, but I loved that because I felt it brought the best out of me. I always wanted to impress them. It sort of drove me a little bit. I mean, I don't know what it was. It was just something about the way that they were. They showed no favoritism to anyone. The sessions weren't particularly, great or varied. We did a lot of the same stuff over and over again, lots of cross country and stuff. But I was like, I always want to be up there in the top 2 or 3 and push myself as much as possible to try and get a smile out of that woman. So it's almost like trying to find a way to turn that into a positive that drove me personally. But I also recognise that doesn't work for everyone. And I probably think they turned quite a few people off in my school to sports, or just seeing new sports as something they could try. Because all it takes is a bit of negative feedback that's like super negative, not constructive, and that could be the thing that's sort of driving you. Unless if you just decide to turn that a little bit and think that is what's actually going to fuel me. But I think that's just very different for different people. Like we're all wired differently, and we all respond, positively and negatively to different situations. So I suppose it comes back to understanding, like your team or people you're coaching or your teammates, and what pushes you might be different to what pushes you. So
Yeah, maybe it's interesting to hear your perspective from someone who was like good at sports being young, because I do meet people like you, like now that I'm around 40, and or
That's
actually
so young.
When she said it earlier, I did 30 plus 10 in my head. I was like, no.
30% is 40. Let me just put it out there. Yeah, I'm a little bit weird about turning 40, but
you don't
it's
need to
true.
be, you look really young.
It's
You've got
like
great
25.
genes.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was trying to say is that I meet a lot of women who were very good at sports or were involved in elite sports when they were younger. And then, maybe, there was life, maybe they had kids, but they took some time out. And then they feel very nervous about coming back.
Yeah.
Or suddenly maybe when they come back, they're not as strong as they used to be. And then them feeling very discouraged.
Mhm.
So I do meet people like that, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Answer that question then.
So sorry, my thoughts on people that
Were very good at sport, and then they took a break, or for whatever reason, now they're just like one of the others, like us.
I think it depends if you put if you have lots of expectation. So say you've taken a break for whatever reason, maybe you're studying and you need to focus on that for a year, and then you come back into sport. I think the key is don't compare yourself to what you were or compare yourself to other people because they've been doing different things. It's almost like set yourself a wee challenge, which might be, I'm going to learn to love this sport again and have lots of fun and get fit and see where that goes. I think the issue is if you come in and you think, right, why am I not as good as Kat at this right now, or constantly comparing yourself to somebody else, that could be the challenge. So I'm not saying it's quite difficult to sort of, I suppose, answer that in the sense of, because it might be different for different
Do
people.
you ever
But-
find yourself comparing?
Or even
I'm a bit-
comparing yourself to yourself, you know, that really, that's good.
Yeah.
But when people, sometimes people are like, you know, we're getting older or we have some different illness or injury and then you're trying to like get back to who you were. Sometimes
Oh,
that's
yeah.
very difficult as well.
I'm aware I'm not going to get there, but
I think
Maybe 20 next year.
but it's maybe different. I might be better at different things. Because when I was younger, I just used to run around all the time, so I didn't really have much time to think about doing things properly. So maybe now I'm a little bit older and slower. That can be a benefit for different sports or just seeing things differently. I don't know about you. You've played constantly, really, haven't you?
I've taken a few breaks, but I think I don't know how or why. And I'm enjoying the trail running community because the older community is strong and they're good. They're really good.
Yeah.
Whereas then I go to the rugby field and I'm playing some 19-year-olds and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Or is it similar to say when you come back from an injury? Maybe
Yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
some of the audience may have experienced that as well. So even if it's a short injury, or it could be a longer injury where you've had a year out and you've only been playing sport for 2 or 3 years, that's like a third of your sporting career you've been injured.
And you've had a few, haven't you?
Yeah.
And
I've had a couple.
what was it like when you got injured and then you tried to go back? How was that?
Well, I think I suppose it's
That
similar
is
to what I was saying, like, is then you realise you can't quite do exactly what you did at the point when you got injured. So it's about trying to put little steps together to get back there somehow.
Were you supported in that at the time?
Yeah, I think it was pretty lucky actually. There was kind of a medical team around and there was experienced teammates that have gone through similar things that were able to offer their advice. I think that's a great source of support. If you feel you're the only one experiencing something, it can be quite a lonely place. And rehab is quite a painful thing to do, mentally and physically, but I know it's very boring.
God.
But if you've got someone that's like, come on, get on with it, you know, like maybe an older teammate that you look up to, and that you listen to that says, come on, stop moping around, get back on there, and you'll be back in no time. Like that's all really, really positive. So that definitely helps, I'd say.
So we have a visitor, Rachel.
Hello. Hi.
I'm disappointed. I've been told you're not in full Scotland kit.
I'm not, no.
Why
I'm just
not?
wearing my regular kit.
You should be in it. That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry. I'm sorry I've missed half of it. Technical issues, the usual.
Right, like we had a good half hour's worth of technical issues this side as well at the beginning, so snap.
Mm.
I'm going to be right up and honest. I know we've even talked and you sent me what you were going to say, but I've completely forgotten. You were going to give some stat about. Remind me?
I was just going to talk a bit about my journey to where I am now, a bit about my background and my experiences.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So, interrupt me if you wish, but I'll just have a bit of a brief chat. So I play rugby for Scotland Women at the moment, and I first joined them back in 2015. The first opportunity came along to join, and I was a student at the time, so I had the flexibility and the time to be able to do that. I then started working as a full-time social worker in 2016, which then obviously presented some time issues, and social work is pretty heavy going. So at that point, I had to make a decision to step back from rugby, focus a bit on my career, trying to learn how to do the job, all of that stuff. I kept playing club rugby and absolutely loved it. And I then got my second opportunity to join Scotland Women again just over a year ago. I made the decision to go part-time at work to allow me to do that. and it's been great. It's been filled with challenges because of lockdown and coronavirus, same as everybody. But yeah, I got my first cap last October at the age of 28 years old, and it's been great. I think it's worth mentioning just, you know, the media paid quite a lot of attention to my age. It was my birthday the day after I got my first cap, so I'm now 29. I'm not sure if that's because they think I'm old or if it was just something to talk about, but I think it's worth saying you have to do things at your own time scale and in a way that suits your life. So I took that break for 4 or 5 years, and I came back and I finally got that cap. So yeah, I think you've probably talked a fair bit about childhood and role models and all of that, but my role model when I was a child, probably the only female athlete I was really aware of, was actually my auntie, Judy Oakes, who was a shot putter, and she did powerlifting as well. She went to Olympic and Commonwealth Games. So I have a memory of seeing her on TV and being really proud as a kid, but probably didn't make me aware of my own abilities or think about what I could do. And she then retired when I was still quite young. My mum has an athletics background as well, but quite early on she made decisions to go down a different path in life. So she never really spoke about it very much, but I think she definitely had a lot of potential. I played football when I was a kid and was only aware of male athletes, male footballers, male teams. I played with the boys, which gets you a bit of attention when you're a kid, but I didn't care that much because I absolutely love football. So I then moved on to mixed sports after that, played a bit of badminton, did a bit of athletics where my mum was the coach. Yeah, and then I moved away from sport when I was in my mid-teens, which I think is quite common especially for girls. You just sort of get caught up in other things going on in life. I'm really glad that I came back to sport when I was probably about 19. I started running. It was my older brother that got me back into that, and then I discovered rugby, which has been one of the best things ever. Yeah, in school I remember I had a female PE teacher who had asked me to help her set up a girls' basketball team, and I said no at the time, and I remember thinking that it would be really cool, but at that point in my life I just probably didn't have the confidence to do that, and again wasn't aware of my own sporting abilities, so probably missed a bit of a chance there. And I think that's probably common for girls, is that there's so much untapped potential, and you know, we should be doing what we love, we should be doing what we're built for, and I think if we can bring more female role models who are real into girls' attention, then we can promote sport for them. So yeah.
Nice.
I like that.
That was very good.
That was
Yeah,
strong.
like
mesmerised.
I've got a question for you, Rachel. Just because you're at the top of your game at the moment. I saw that amazing try against. Congratulations. But yeah, I suppose what advice do you have for any young, aspiring female athletes out there that are already playing and enjoying sport, but actually realise they're quite good at it and that they can go further in that sport? Is there any advice you have for them that might be quite helpful when they kind of maybe balancing other stuff as well, but sport is an option for them?
I think it's probably about having a network around you that support you in that, having people that sort of encourage you or give you permission, depending, you know, who they are in your life. It's just about having people that say to you, you can do this and you should go for it. That makes such a big difference, because it is hard and it's hard to juggle other things, but if people are supporting you in it, then that can make all of the difference as to whether you keep going or you drop off. So yeah.
And what was it that was driving you? Because Kat told us a little bit about what you've been doing during lockdown and making sure you're still super fit and, you know, smashing all these various fitness challenges. What was it for you that was really driving you during that phase? Because I know there's people out there that aren't able to fully get back to sport, or it's been a really challenging year for them. Any words of wisdom, I suppose, around that that could be helpful?
Yeah. I think I found it really difficult personally after the first lockdown to make a decision about then getting back into training, just rejoining that and the big commitment that it was. But again, it was down to people around me being like, just go for it, just give it a shot, just do it. And I suppose the reality is that I absolutely love it. I love fitness, I love the competition, I love challenges.
Really true.
So yeah, cat knows.
Yeah, I do.
And once I started, you know, that's it. You're just doing something you enjoy and you keep going despite the challenges.
I like it.
Anyone else got any? I have one around. What do you think was the turning point in terms of realizing what you were capable of? I guess, especially when you said about the basketball when you were a kid, and it was about you not feeling confident. Was there a moment, or is there a series of events or a person? What got you through to be like, actually, you know, I belong here in the Scotland squad?
Yeah, I think probably one of the big moments was when I was voted by the team at Stirling County to be captain. And I think that was about people seeing me in the gym, seeing what I could do, seeing what I could do on the pitch. And for me, that was a huge boost. And it also just let me know that I had that capability. So that was probably one big moment where I was reassured, or you know, it confirmed that I had ability. And then obviously getting the call up to join Scotland Women, being seen by the coach at the time, in a game where we got absolutely smashed, and then him saying, "Oh, I think you've got potential. Will you come on this camp?" So that was a big deal. And then the second opportunity again, just getting the recognition that I'm good at what I do.
Nice. Anyone? I suppose one other thing for everyone, I think what you'd brought up is you've spoken about initially getting into rugby because of a guy. You've spoken about in the men being involved in men's football, then being an off-putting thing, and you've spoken about female role models. So I suppose what are we looking for in our role models? Is there something really important? Do we need to have women? What do we think about? Who are our role models? Who have they been, and what made them so important to us?
I think mine's around. For me, it doesn't necessarily need to be a female. It needs to be someone that shows the values that I kind of live by. So like Rachel's talking there. I've trained with her a couple of times before I got too old, but just like Rachel's someone that trains extremely hard. She's very modest, and she pushes others along with her by the way that she trains. So she has a positive knock-on effect on others. So they're the kind of things that I would look for. For me, that doesn't need to be a female or a male. It's great if it's a female, and it's great if it's in a sport you're interested in, because that reinforces things. But yeah, just positive people that talk positively about sport and try and get others involved and try and support other people around them. So for me, it doesn't need to be, say, a big name of someone over here that's achieved X, Y, and Z. It's like someone that's actually positively influenced other people or you and helped you to train harder or have more fun. That kind of, I suppose that's what I would be looking for.
So to you, is it close contact? It wouldn't be someone.
It's probably more that I'd say the role models are probably more teammates that I've been with. So maybe a more experienced person that's taught me a lot about the game, or actually somebody that's not played very long, but actually has got a fantastic attitude, and you're like, I can learn from you, or I'm better because I'm around you. That's kind of, for me, that's the role model. It's like how it makes you feel and how it makes you train and how it makes you love the sport or what you do.
I agree with you.
Not entirely.
No, I agree with you now as an adult.
Yeah.
I think now I think it's amazing to have male and female role models. I think when it comes to sport and younger people, I think it's crucial that girls have female role models. And I know Rachel touched on it as well. I was the same. I could have named you probably every player, half the players in the 2003-2004 Premier League, right? I could have named you one. I don't have the stick book. I could have named you one female athlete growing up, and whether consciously or subconsciously or directly or indirectly, I very much got the message that sport wasn't for me.
Okay.
Because I could see I had no female sporting role models. I had female role models, but none in sport. Mm-hmm. And I think that probably had an impact on me, because I was like, women don't play sport. And it's a cycle. The more there's coverage, they're exposed, there's role models, kids are getting, so I agree that now it could be male and female, I think that's awesome, but I think it's really key that unless you're someone by like Rachel sounds like that was, you know, very, very strong and sort of forward thinking from a young age and thought, well, I can only see men, but whatever, here I go. I think it's crucial that there are women.
Well, the other thing to say about Shanglin, you've got all brothers, don't you? Do you have a sister?
I have one sister, 3 brothers and 1 sister.
I don't know if there's also something about if you're already used to playing so much with boys from a young age, then you would see a boy and you would think, whatever. Whereas I went to an all-girls school, so the crossover to them to play with boys would have been like,
Yeah, don't play with boys.
Yeah.
What do you think regarding the
Yeah, I think I think especially growing up here in Hong Kong, and it was funny, I was hearing you guys talk about, your mother was in this kind of sport and your grandmother or aunt was in it. I don't know that my grandmother plays any sports, and my mom has picked up sports, I would say, in her late 50s, which is amazing, and it's transformed her life as well. So I hope she gets to see this. So definitely, it didn't help that I didn't really have many role models in sports. So I think having someone that's similar to yourself, and you've seen them play sports, whether they're elite or not elite, just playing sport in general and enjoying it as a hobby, really helps. And I think that's really changed for the young people out there now. So that helps. I think for like me as an adult, role models is more related to character, like you said.
Yeah.
It's like, I kind of love to see when someone sort of persevered and they had a goal, and despite everything, somehow they made it, or maybe that was a difficulty and somehow they, in the end, after a lot of obstacles, then later they achieved something else. I mean, I think those stories really inspire me.
I think it's about what you're exposed to, right, isn't it? And then if my family weren't, the females in my family weren't sporty either, so I wasn't, it just wasn't a thing for me. And I think when you're a teenager, a role model represents and then expands what's possible for you. And in order for that to be possible, there has to be something you have in common with them. So a teenage girl, it's quite unlikely that her role model is going to be a middle-aged man, right? Because she's going to look at him and think, what? Nothing in common. But if it's a woman, at least they have a gender in common, I think there has to be something. So I think the more women that can be role models for teenage girls that can expand what they think is possible, the better.
I also actually feel I did, not pressure, but I've got 2 young cousins, and I always thought actually they needed to see me in sport as boys, because they needed to see they needed to see the other side of that, is that I wanted them to see that they had someone who, they don't need to know how much I do or do not squat, but someone who they can envision as being a strong female, so that we can also get rid of some of this attitude difference between the two, where it's just assumed, the boys just assume because they don't see the girls doing something, the girls don't do it. And I think that's
things
how
got to become the norm, haven't they?
Shanklin, do you wanna add anything on male and female role models?
Yeah, I think there's been some really good points there, and I totally agree that I think young girls do need to see females to identify with that and to see the potential for them. Yeah, I think you're right as well, Kat. The whole other side of the coin is that for young boys, they need to see women in sport that are strong too, because it's a difficulty that we face over social media, is a lot of negativity, which tends to come from males and their view of women in sport, and that's really hard. So I think to show, it's just another thing that we need to show, to be in the limelight, to be real to people, and to get that respect that we deserve for doing what we love, doing what we're good at.
So we're thinking about wrapping up. We'll finish with the little quiz, but just before, does anyone have anything that they want to say that hasn't been said, or?
I think so, right? Oh, there'll be something tonight.
Sure.
That would be good to say.
Thank you for organising this. Well, good for you. I think this is a very important conversation. I think role models and coverage and the circle of getting people out there, women out there, and it all coming full circle is important. So well done you.
Well, I think there's really interesting shifts happening. I was talking in the taxi over. I know that you posted or reposted this. There's only 4%. I think it's in the US. There's only 4%
Yeah.
coverage of female sports, and then also they've just announced the basketball player Birdie and
Mhm. Alex Morgan,
Yes,
a bunch of
and
them,
bunch of
yeah.
are now setting up their own media company. And I think there's this really interesting shift happening where women are starting to say, okay, we're trying to get in the spaces that are available, or we can't get in, or those spaces are racist, sexist, classist. So actually, we're just going to invent our own spaces, and I think that's great news.
Yeah, and that's America. One quick thing. 2 weeks ago, England women football, for the first time in a year, played their first international game. They played it in England. They played Northern Ireland, right? 2 home nations. It was on the BBC Red Button on a Tuesday night. There's something like The Chase was on BBC Two or something. And do you know what? In order for this game to grow, in order for women's sports to grow, they have to get eyes to the game. Who clicks on the red button? We're not being funny. For anyone that doesn't know what the red button is, it's someone's
No one even
school
knows.
channel.
No one even knows.
I wouldn't even go there. So
No.
yeah,
It just
that's a really valid
a
point.
Tuesday night, putting a professional women's team, England football being probably one of the biggest sports in the UK,
Yeah.
playing Northern Ireland, putting them on the red button, first time they've played in a year. You would never find those men on that red button. Never.
Yeah.
And I just think things like that are shocking, and you have to put them on the mainstream channels in order for this to come around.
And I think one thing that I really enjoy, I don't like social media. It's just too much time, and you have to proofread everything 3 times, and you still get a spelling mistake, and it drives me nuts. But one thing about this is that actually there's so much access now, and I've now got accounts
Yeah.
that send me what's happening in the weekend, which is incredible, like Aussie rules. The other, you see that ice hockey women's played in Madison Garden for the first time ever, and that's huge. So that now I've got so much more access
We can see what's
to,
going on.
you can see what's going on, and I think.
I think
there's a lot-
individual athletes as well, they have now like a platform to have a voice.
This
So
is huge,
my question when you say about the red button is, well, how do we change and influence that? But
Right.
if we all keep sharing what we're doing, sharing good stories
Mhm,
about
mhm.
success, participation, etc., we can all hopefully collectively try and influence
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, social media scares me personally, and it takes me forever to think about what to say. But I do really enjoy, having a good creep on it and having a look at. There's certain places I go to, some really good, like Happiness is Egg Shaped. There's a few other places out there that are doing a lot to help promote sport, including women's sport, which I quite like as well. Making sure there's sort of equal coverage there. So the more we can kind of push that out there, the better.
I have to say I'm always a small bit jealous though, because the trail runners don't seem to look bad in any of their running that I follow, and I just think I don't see me in that picture because I'm caked in sweat. I've probably fallen over also. It's incredible to be able to access this world though. I think.
Yeah. I think on the speaking about role models and also like public perception, I actually think here locally there's been a huge change. I mean, ever since I took up my new hobby 10 years ago, I've become very, very tan. And I used to get a lot of comments from people, a lot of suggestions on how I should, use an umbrella or like wear a hat, etc. And that, am I getting too muscular, etc. But in the recent 2 or 3 years, it's completely different, and I never get that anymore. And I even had like sort of like a retired, like 2 retired gentlemen. He wanted to take a photo with me and a friend because we were wearing all cycling gear and we were looking sporty. And he just thought, wow, you guys are awesome, awesome women. You guys are my role models. And I just thought, wow, what a change.
Yeah, just in the last few years.
Yeah.
It's happening. Slowly.
That was a good story to me. Right, you ready? I have a quick quiz.
I've got one.
Shanklin, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Are you ready for a quiz?
Yeah.
Have you got some sort of buzzer? So for the audience that are listening, they had one job.
I fulfilled my job. What time?
2 of them fulfilled it. Shanklin, do you have a buzzer?
No, I will use my voice.
Boys.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
She's smart.
So I've got 5 questions here. And we'll see.
Trust me, I am.
We'll see how well you do. Right, number 1. What is the rate of girls dropping out of sport by 14 compared to the boys? Yes.
Double?
Nice.
Yeah.
It helps that you can see the answers.
I know.
Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 behaviours here. So there's a chance for all of you. Name some leadership behaviours that women often value and show. Some of them are a bit odd, but.
Warm and friendly.
Yes,
Is that 2 or 1?
that's actually 2.
2.
I'm ahead.
Clear communication or communication of some sort. No.
Not down here.
Okay.
It's also, yeah, not down here.
Encouraging, supportive, that kind of word.
Yes, inspirational motivation. Nailed it.
That's what I was saying.
There's 2 others.
2 more.
Yeah, I don't.
What do they begin with?
One's M, one's I.
And what's I?
Oh, intrinsic. No, I saw that. I read that earlier.
You said inspiration already.
Yeah, there's another I.
Independent?
Is it to do with like getting to know the athlete or player?
What,
So like that the relationship.
Intelligent.
Yeah.
I said that as a joke.
He said it and I repeat
I
it.
just know who to give that.
I'm ahead. I have 2.5. You have 1.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
sharing, we're sharing. The last one, shall I just tell you?
Yes.
Mentally.
Oh.
Okay, so according to the research, there are 4 benefits of female athletes having public athletic role models. What are they?
Please say your
Please repeat the question.
Are you dying to death over there?
Well, no, it's just quite a long question. Go on.
Okay, so there are 4 benefits of female athletes having public athletic role models. What are they? 4 benefits to having an athletic role model.
Increased participation?
No.
So you can see them?
Yeah, like
Visibility?
visibility.
Oh, okay. This is a trick question.
Showing things are possible.
No. So this is like the no, you're on the wrong track. I'll make you.
The question. The question.
Yeah. For example, more confident.
It makes them more confident.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's the answer I'm looking for.
Okay.
Yes.
Makes them more motivated, inspired.
Yes. Devoted to their sport.
Brilliant.
Oh, tie.
Sorry.
I wasn't
Yeah,
keeping track.
You got to sleep.
I'm just wish I'm motivated by every answer. I've got it now.
Shanklin, have you got anything for us?
He's got 0.
One.
Oh, one more.
So it's
One more to go.
benefits of public athletics. Are we giving up?
Yeah.
Give up next.
Okay.
Yeah.
More competitive, goal-orientated, and devoted to their sport. You're not going to get that next question. I'm going to give up. Research suggests women find what important in their role models?
Oh, character traits.
Yes. I mean,
Well, one.
you summed up 4 here.
Oh,
So
really?
I'll just give it.
Oh, sharp.
Alright,
She's taking all the-
So the 4
she's a
are
little bit competitive.
I saw you get competitive too, so no pretending. It was just. So they're actually good sportsmanship, good person on field, humble and balanced in their personal and professional lives. But you nailed it. We'll just give it. We'll just give it to you.
Well done, sister.
Brownie.
Because I think Sarah needs saving.
Is that the end of the quiz?
It's dinner time. It is the end of the quiz. I think we can.
Well played. Good game.
Sportsmanship.
I was thinking that actually, and then I realised.
Good job, Shanklin.
Well
You
done.
got a solid 1 or 2.
Great.
So, well,
No.
Moving on.
I think that's all from us today. Anything else you want to say to finish?
Just looking forward to round 2 next week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
Same time, same place, different link. Next week will be 3 brand new guests, fresh faces,
Yep.
looking at some of the, chatting about physical and mental stuff around the game. Apparently I'm losing it as well.
But a good place to go for more information is the Instagram page, isn't it? So Girls in Sport on HQ. And that's where you get all the information on what next week actually is.
Thank you very much. Between the two of us, good job, all of us.
Yeah.
Good job, ladies. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Train hard.
Yeah. Bye.
Next thing we should have said. Are we off? Okay, one very last thing before I go. Shankland is stepping up to the plate. Next week they go into some weird bubble so that they can play rugby. So we wish her all the best.
Yeah.
All the best.
Let's maybe share her Instagram details.
Yeah,
as
we'll
well,
share
so
the
you can follow
Instagram.
her.
So you can. She's an epic role model, and you can keep an eye on her progress through the Six Nations. Bye bye. Real bye bye.
Bye.